All righty. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. Monday, August 24th, 2026 is 6:03 p.m. I get started to see if we have any questions about what we talked about yesterday or anything that may have come to your attention. Just quickly yesterday, we did a Q&A yesterday, mainly about what we had discussed on Saturday. Uh, it was led by our conversation and discussion rather, looking at what it means to redeem the English language. We talked a lot about the English language and the, uh, the looking at it from a spiritual perspective and what that means and where we are, where that has led us, and why it is important to redeem the language. We talked a lot about Christianity and Islam and the difference between those two because those are primarily the religions that we in here, the Cabelonian in America has followed. Uh, we had some questions. We talked about prayer and meditation. Uh, let's see, we went briefly to Matthew 6 and 33 and talked a lot about religion, talked about the violence in America. So, uh, any questions? And we talked a lot of as again about frequencies, uh, being in frequency with the universe. So, any questions at all? Because I'm as always, I sure I may miss something, but any questions, guys, or anything that you see, Pastor, that you want to talk about or bring
I
to our, hey, hey, Kathy.
apologize. I did not mean to butt in. I do have two questions, and I don't know where they'll take us, but I do have two questions from some of the things that were said on yesterday. So, Pastor, I'm going to direct these at you. My first question is on yesterday when you explained to Angela what it means to transcend time. You said that our spirit travels, and based on what we've been looking at, with the soul and the spirit and all of those things, we now understand that it is that the soul that is the spiritual traveler. So my question becomes: do we vibrate at a higher frequency when we sleep, and do we experience a nocturnal journey, a meditation that causes us to vibrate at a higher frequency? And I use that word nocturnal loosely based on when I'm speaking of night, based on the way we described night and day yesterday. I'm looking at it that way when I said nocturnal. So I guess the question remains, do we vibrate at a higher frequency when we sleep, and do we experience a nocturnal type of meditation that causes us to vibrate at a higher frequency? That's my first question.
Um, the first question, do we vibrate at a higher frequency when we are asleep? What happens when you're asleep is pretty much the same thing that happens when you're awake in that regard. It is predicated on your desires uh, and what frequency are you seeking to vibrate at. If you're unaware that there's a vibratory frequency that opens you opens you up to understand your divine essence, then yes, when you are asleep, that you vibrated that at that frequency, and we have dreams that we might not understand, or we visit places in the other world or the another dimension that we don't quite understand. Through meditation, we can get the understanding of it. And there are times when we have those um, encounters, and we don't get an understanding of it till sometime later. And an example of that is when I was talking to you guys about what I had written in February. I got up to write that around about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was after I had dreamt about something that that dealt with understanding white people, and that interaction I didn't understand. However, I was probed and awakened to write what I did. And lo and behold, this is what it was, and I didn't touch it anymore until now. So, what I'm saying in essence is that this writing was for such a time as this. Does that help you, Kathy? So the soul does travel.
It does. And I guess my question also is it possible or understanding meditation when we're still in quiet and in the mode of receiving? You talked about how we receive messages through dreams and we travel and all of these things happening. Is that a form of meditation that we're in when these things are going on?
Um,
Even when we are asleep? That's the other part of my same question. That's not the second question, but the second part of the same question.
it is the divine making us aware of who we are. Now, what happens in that regard when you are a Christian or when you are a criminal? Whatever your desire is, that's what the soul brings to you. Why do I say that? Because your soul, not your soul, the energy of the universe is neutral. And what activates the energy of the universe are your desires. And your desires are seen in how you interact with other people and the thoughts that you allow to linger in your mind. Can you see that?
I can.
So, whatever is lingering in your mind, those are the things that you are going to experience. You experience what your desires are. And I cannot say that you're always going to have an divine experience, but I will say that you're always going to have a experience based upon your desires. You cannot fake it with the ancestors. So to play games or to attempt to do that results in consequences. So to be honest with yourself about what you desire to understand about yourself also results in rewards. Questions about that? Kathy?
I'm still processing what you're saying because I'm not sure that I understand the answer that you're giving me to the question that I asked. So I'm still kind of processing
Let me see if there's anyone
because
who can help me with that.
I didn't hear you. What did you say, Pastor?
Anyone who can help me with that. Is there?
Well, I kind of got something to add, and it may make more questions, but yeah, I think it's relevant. I was reading something today, and it was talking about the subconscious versus the conscious mind, and it was basically saying your subconscious mind stores your habits, your emotions, all past learning and conditioning, images, feelings, repetition. It's kind of like on autopilot, if you will. It executes what you repeat. And then your conscious mind thinks, it reasons, it's slow, it's deliberate, it's voluntary focus. The scope, it talks about the scope, it talks about now and the near future. Words and logic. It's active when you are alert. Planning and decoding, self-talk, sets intent and focus. And so kind of like because what I was reading, it was talking about how you can, before you go to bed, it was this scientist was talking about before you go to bed, set your intentions. And I never really even thought about that. And I'm like, set your intentions before you go to bed. And he was basically saying, set your intentions before you go to bed. And because you're subconscious, when you go to sleep, you can basically program yourself to think a certain way, and you set your intentions before you go to sleep and expect the result. And how he was talking about you do this over time, and you basically reprogram yourself to think differently and to have different self-talk when basically how you think and how you speak to yourself. And so that's kind of like what he was talking about today. But I thought that made a lot of sense, and it was kind of intriguing that we actually got to talking about this today.
Thank you. Let me see if I'm understanding what you're saying. The subconscious holds what you have focused on and what you have experienced. The consciousness focuses on what you desire it to focus on while you're awake. You are the one who determines what your consciousness focuses on. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So,
and your subconscious focuses on what you repeat. So whatever you repeat in self-talk, whatever you repeat in repetition, whatever you practice over and over, that's what your subconscious is going to focus on.
okay, so based upon what you're saying and the question that Kathy raised, your soul does travel. That's we have established. And when your soul travels, you go through periods when you see or experience things while you are asleep. And this is no different than astral travel rather. And so, but the difference is that astral travel, out of body experiences, is something that we have been taught to frown upon, and many of us have been convinced that it doesn't happen. This is no different than your soul journeying into um, other uh,
Dimensions.
huh?
Dimensions or
Dimensions.
planes? Dimensions or planes?
Dimensions. And what we don't understand is that we are not in, we do not live in one dimension. Every dimension has us in it. You understand what that means?
Keep talking, Pastor. Keep
Every
talking.
has us in it. When we did not see the scriptures that we searched for and had read and taught, they were no longer in the Bible. Why? Because we moved to another dimension. And that dimension that we were in, the essence of us was already there. So we embodied that dimension. And as a result of that, what happened? We said it that I will bring you across the river in chains in order to bring you back to me, says the scripture. We said that it's no longer there, and we stopped and said that it must have been accomplished. But it wasn't accomplished. What was accomplished is where we are now. We no longer needed that because that that sparked in us, in some people, anger, distastefulness for white people, period. So when it was no longer there, now we see that it is our desire to rid the earth of the Euro consciousness. We have been in this plane or this dimension of seeing clearer what our task is, as opposed to seeing it through the eyes of our pseudo spirituality, which is religion and politics, because that's how we were seeing it. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So now that we are where we are, when we have these dreams slash vision, or when the soul travels, what we are dreaming about, or what we are being shown, pertains to what our, as Don put it, subconscious memory bank holds, and what our consciousness seek. Why? Because our consciousness seek to embrace the essence of our divinity, and what's in our memory are those things that have been brought to us that led us to the place of seeking to not only embrace but to understand what it means to be divine. And as a result of that, when we meditate, most of us, I will say, very presumptuous, that when we meditate, we're more listeners than we are speakers. And the listening, when we meditate, it brings us understandings of the travels that we have experienced, and also bring us understandings of things that we never thought of. And when we begin to impregnate the macro, that is when those messages that was embodied in us begins to flow. So what have we done? We are not living in a dimension that embraces religion. We are living in a dimension that embraces spirituality. Therefore, when Jesus says, or when it is written that this was said by Yeshua, this you are in the world, but not of it. We are in a dimension where we teach, but we're not of that dimension. The dimension that we the one that we truly live in, the one that we have our experiences in, is a dimension of spirituality, as opposed to a dimension of religion. If you can imagine a circle being religion, and a circle beside it being spirituality, when we were in that circle of religion, we did not seek ways out of it. We sought to get answers to questions. Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to stay where we were. We simply wanted answers. Why? Because we have been trained to look at look at religion academically. Because you got seminaries, you have these classes, you go to that kind of thing. So we were seeking to get answers to questions. And the time came when we were no longer seeking answers to questions. What we were doing was moving out of that dimension of religion with the understanding that this is what had us in bondage. And that is the reason we could not embrace spirituality or understand it the way that we subconsciously desired to. So when we embraced the reality of this and moved into this dimension of spirituality, our whole manner of thought began to shift. And in this shifting, when we visit other places at night, when the soul carries us into a different dimension or carries us deeper into the dimension that we currently are in, the messages that we receive are messages that increases or help us to augment or to enhance the vibrations so that our frequency increases or matches the frequency of the universe. When we awaken, we have to our thoughts in order for that frequency to be what it was when we experienced it during our meditation or during the travel of the soul as our bodies lay there in the bed. Does that help, Kathy?
I think so. It's becoming clearer to me. So the messages that we receive and what's happening as we sleep is not necessarily what we would call meditation, but it's a journey of manifestation where that when we awaken and we are in our meditation, these are things that About Time Remembrance said that are to be manifested in us to help us vibrate at the frequency of the universe, to help us on this journey of vibrating at the frequency of the universe, if I'm hearing you correctly.
You are.
Okay. Okay.
Let me give you an example of that travel or meditation. Yesterday we talked about the English language, right?
Mhm.
And last night I saw something that I had not seen before. That the redemption of the English language is inextricably tied to the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So where did that come from? I don't remember having traveled last night or having a dream last night. I don't remember having one. But it doesn't mean I didn't. Where did it come from last night? Did I meditate? Of course I did. Um, and I just, how you meditate, you just get up and go about your business and do what you do, right? After that happened, that's when I saw the connection between, the connection between the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And as a result of that, I was shown how to bring the European mindset into a desire to have the mindset that is offered by the Creator. So where did it come from? It came through my meditation, but it didn't come through my dreams. Now the stuff that I wrote came through dreams. You see the difference?
Yes.
So, and the other thing I should say at this point, my mind, as is our minds, are being retrained to sync with our divine essence. And our making efforts to explain or to make clear spiritual things is not as easy as it is at this point, of course, to make clear historical stuff or religious stuff. It's easy to do that because all of that is academic and there's nothing spiritual about it. Yet, when we see the spiritual nature of it, to use our minds to explain it does not do us justice. Yet, we still try to do that because we are between the two. We are between the hearing from the pineal gland and the purging of academia or the European mindset from our way of thinking. And that's the process that we are going through now. In other words, we are in the process of renewing our mind, which means that you are changing the way you think. Can you see that?
Yes.
So I'm not here to say that I have all the answers because no one has all the answers. However, I am here to say that we have answers and methods of clarity to bring clarity that we have never experienced before now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And see, what does this do? It helps us to understand what it means to be our brother's keeper. We cannot travel this journey alone. It takes all of us, inclusive of all the questions, because without the questions, we don't get answers. At least I don't anyway. If that is clear and there are no questions about it, um, we can move to something else. Kathy?
Okay. I'm much clearer on that. I appreciate that. I had a second question, and I think you said this, and I've listened back twice to everything that was said yesterday, but I just wanted a little more clarity and make certain that just answer this question for me, if you will. Going back to language again and understanding that language casts spells. Now that we understand this and we're growing and we're changing, what happens first? Do we change our language to change our thoughts, or do we change our thoughts to change our language, or do these things happen simultaneously now that we are aware?
Okay, let me present what I was shown in regards to that with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay.
Okay.
English language must be redeemed, and the redemption of it and the methodology for redeeming it can be found in the understanding of the tree of knowledge and the tree of The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life is a message. And this message of the tree of life is that it gives us instructions about the eternal light that sustains life in the earth. Why do I say that? Because it's not enough to simply say tree of life. This is not all that the tree of life gives us by way of instruction. This is not the only message. But in relationship to what we are looking at with this language, it speaks to the sustaining of life in the earth. And that sustaining of life in the earth is predicated on the eternality of enlightenment. Are you with me? Questions about that?
Sage, could you explain that a little bit more? I'm not quite sure
Okay,
I understood it all.
this is the message. You are divine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being divine, you have access to being messaged by the ancestors / Akashic consciousness. And the message that we have received from the ancestors, from Akashic consciousness, is a message that speaks to our divinity. And with us recognizing the divinity of the divineness of who we are, and knowing that every other person, human, came from us, came from the womb of a Babylonian woman. That means that the deliverer is the light of the world. When it said that the message of Jesus is, I say that you're the light of the world, what he's actually saying is, when you are in the throes of bringing deliverance to humanity, you are the manifested light of this earth. And because you are divine, and because life came through you, you are the sustainer of life in the earth also. And we said that before, but differently. We said that if all of us were to die or be obliterated from this earth, there would be no life on the earth, because it has to have the presence of what brought it into existence. Are you with me? You see that?
Yes.
The rest of you guys, can you see that?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Now, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is also a message. Those who are infected by the European mindset have a cure that's available to them. That infection does not have to be destructive if they embrace the cure. And when I say they, I'm talking about anyone with that mindset. I'm not talking about just white people. I'm talking about anyone with that mindset. So keep that in mind. The Euro mindset has the capacity to discern the difference between right and wrong, the knowledge of good and evil. The European mindset has the capacity to discern what's right and what's wrong. When we engage the English language for the purpose of redeeming it, the cure to the infection is made is brought into action, meaning that our engaging to redeem the language is releasing the cure for the infection of the European mindset. And that infection is one of evil, if one is one of unrightness, if one that has no compassion and seek to do anything and also suppress or oppress people who don't look like them. Are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
So, how do we bring healing to the mindset? Is what I took from Kathy's question. And I do believe we have to understand before I respond to this question the that the European the European mindset has an infection that needs to be healed. We are not able to bring healing to a European mindset if we don't bring healing to the European mindset that infects us. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that, Pastor.
Yes.
If you cannot redeem yourself from the infection of that European mindset, how do you expect to bring that healing to someone else? Now, Kathy asked about the methodology, how you bring that healing. Let's back up. Thoughts and words are energy. When we think something that is not aligned with Mayat, then we must free ourselves from that thought simply by saying, that's not me. That's not who I am, and correcting it. When we correct our thoughts, then we are able to correct our speech. And when our thoughts are corrected, we are utilizing the cure for the mindset. When I was engaged in politics, I had a European mindset. I knew right from wrong, but everything that white people did was wrong to me. But that was not the truth. I had that mindset. When you have the mindset of divinity, you have no desire to destroy anyone, regardless of what they've said about you or done to you. When you have the mindset of divinity, the desire is that everyone be delivered from this infection. None be left behind. That's the desire. And when we have that desire, we begin with ourselves. So when we are speaking based upon the language of divinity, we are putting in the macro the cure for the European mindset. So when we encounter people who are asking questions that they've never raised before, making statements that they've never made before, like um, black people are the gods of this earth. We hear that everywhere now. One of the things that the Creator has given us as an example of not only the work we've done, the task that we are engaged in, but the manifestation of it is becoming clear. The Democratic Socialist wing of the Democrat Party is explicitly showing us a shift in the way that they think. That doesn't mean that they are dealing with racism at this moment. It doesn't mean that they are not um, still embracing white supremacy. We could see what happened in Texas with Jasmine Crockett and the Democratic Socialist Coalition. However, there is a start, that is a beginning, and that is a discernment of right from wrong. And the more that we cure ourselves from this infection, the more we will see others being cured from this infection as well. This would never have happened if the ancestors had not allowed Donald Trump to be successful in his bid for re-election. That re-election spelled the demise of America. And the way that America be brought to justice for all of its iniquities, in order for that to happen, we have to stop complaining and pointing out evilness, as opposed to speaking about what the truth actually is and putting that in the macro and talking about things like that everyone, if they are to be freed, if they are to be cured from this infection, they will begin to speak differently about people who don't look like them. They will begin to act differently. They will begin to think differently, and their acting differently will be a manifestation of the change that we have been seeking forever, but seeking it the wrong way in the wrong places. Questions about that? Is it clear?
It
Kathy?
resonates,
I have
Pastor.
a question.
Go ahead.
So, has the European mindset, and maybe you did say this, has infected the earth? Therefore, that's why the earth seems like it has a virus.
The earth does have a virus. The earth energy responds to the dominant energy. Now that we are seeing how to move forward with this, we've been shown that. We see the demise of this mindset that has infected us, the earth, and everything around it being cured. The justice that we are seeing coming into play or being manifested is the justice that the justice that must be brought to bear on the perpetuators of the injustices that the earth and inhabitants of the earth has endured. And the perpetuation of these injustices have been undergirded, supported, and perpetuated by Christianity and Islam. And Christianity and Islam is in a state of mutual destruction as we speak. The mutual destruction of which I speak is the battle between the heads of the Arabic states and the head of the United States. They are in a perpetual down spiral of self-destruction. We are not here to engage in the destruction. We are here to remove the energy from the hands of those who have wreaked havoc to humanity and the earth. Does that help you, Evan?
It does. So is the earth detoxing? Is those who are coming to justice or being brought to justice, the things we're seeing like with the weather pattern and all these other things, like, so is that the same as detoxing? The earth is detoxing? Because when you have a virus, go ahead.
The earth will not detox until we detox.
Without thoughts?
Till we detox from the European mindset. And yes, ma'am, that's our thoughts and the way we speak. This language must be redeemed. The bodies, the physical presence of the bodies, that really is not what we are dealing with. What we are really dealing with is bringing our children who came from our womb to a place of redemption. And the dominant force that keeps the earth in bondage, when I say earth, I'm talking about physically earth as well as the inhabitants of the earth. The dominant language that has done that continuously is English. And that language has brought into the vernacular of other languages words that are destructive and words that cast spells. In 1865, after the chains were removed from enslaved people, excuse me for a second, please. Prisons on a statewide basis were established. There were no prisons on a statewide basis until after the Civil War. And they were built for us. And they have been sustained for us by Republicans and Democrats. Both of those mindsets must be dealt with. There is no difference between the two because both of them have a mutual desire to destroy people who don't look like them or at the very least imprison them and to maintain their dominance in the earth. That is the reason redemption of the language must take place. Does that help you, Evan?
Yes, sir. It makes a lot of sense. Yes, it resonates. Yes. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Any other questions, Kathy?
No, those are the two that I had, and thank you. You answered them. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah,
George?
Hey, Pastor.
yeah,
Hold on,
I
Go
yield,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
George.
Yeah, as I'm processing what is being said, I thought about what you mentioned in terms of the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And I'm deeply, again, grateful that visually I'm experiencing seeing the tree of life, in that dimension where, we can totally focus on the good. We know in terms of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, but in most cases, sometimes when we look at or listen to or hear someone speak of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, I think in terms of just how things were taught, a lot of emphasis was focusing on the evil. And I'm not saying that that's, the European mindset, but I think in terms of how it created division, I'm going back to look at the tree of life now. And I think you spoke of it, sometime in the past, where a tree can grow in the direction both up and down simultaneously. And I think that what we are experiencing is being able to see the dark matter, the light matter, when it comes to the cosmic creation, the cosmic mother, and the Mayat, the goddess Mayat. I believe that we're able to see that it was all good. And as I think we continue to appreciate the vibrations, we continue to appreciate the frequencies that we're on. I look at it as a great ocean. I look at it as water where we are one spirit. We are one body uh, of an ocean. However, we have our souls, which we all are divinely created, where we may have different ways of approaching or dealing with what we're dealing with. And I think that again, being able to see the spirit and the soul conversing in that way, that we're able to appreciate hearing from the ancestors and realizing that it's always been connected. And I think the ancestors now are hearing us and feeling us in terms of our desire to know. And so as we, continue on this journey, there's a lot of things that come through our minds. And you talked about not processing through our minds, but through our souls. But even when we meditate, we talk about the various brain waves of being in that theta state or delta state, or even, the alpha. But at the same time, again, when we are able to be still, and as I say, as Kathy mentioned, sit on it. I think that our ancestors hear and sense our desire, and so we just need to continually uh, be aware of what we're receiving. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, in terms of just the frequencies that we all are on, and at the same time, again, realizing that we need to continue to enhance those senses. I'm done. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
letting me share.
Idea of what you talked about with the mind. That's why it is written that we are to renew our minds. The renewal of the minds. Why would you have to renew your mind? Because your mind was one way at one time and it's a different way now. So it has to be renewed. So, what does that entail? If our minds are not what they were intended to be from the beginning, then that means that something happened to our minds. Our minds were contaminated with evil. Our minds were manipulated through scriptures. Our mind must be renewed so that our minds will flow with spiritual thoughts, and from our lips will flow spiritual words. And I'm not talking about a cadre of words that's always talking about the divinity of the planet and all those kind. I'm not talking about that, because we are not Christians. Christians always, when they want to be spiritual, they tell you, I'm blessed and highly favored by the Lord. I'm in church every day of the week. Jesus will take your burdens away from you. Where you go take them? When the word simply says, when you seek to be a deliverer, not only will your methodology, your desire for deliverance be in tune with the desire to of deliverance from others who have came before you. Your desire to deliver will do more than the desire of those who came before you. And we can attest to that, because never in the history of this country that its destruction has been more apparent. Never. Until now. All of the celebrations were to promote white supremacy, but they were not true celebrations, and they didn't realize it. What they were celebrating was the destruction, was the destruction of this country. And the first thing that's being destroyed in this country is money. The value of the dollar is dropping. Why? When you take all the energy away from those who present themselves as being God, and their only God is our currency, then that currency must die first. And the currency that dies first impacts those who have been following the mindset of a Trump, or the mindset that America has always had. And when it comes to a Trump or a Musk or whomever, I do not see their mindsets being altered. But I do see the rank and file who have been manipulated and followed the manipulation, being in a space where what we put in the macro about the redemption of that language, they are looking for something better because they did not deliver what they promised. So they're looking for something better. And in their searching for something better, they have the opportunity, if they choose, to embrace that which is in the macro and make it a part of them. And in doing so, that will reverberate across the wavelengths of this mindset of Europeans. That's how we change. It's not integration. It's not segregation. It is the change in the way you think and the way you speak. Any questions about that? Will someone do me a favor?
Yes. I have a quick question.
Will someone do me a favor and turn to Luke 2:23? Go ahead, Audrey.
So you're saying we redeem the language by
changing our mindset and changing the way we speak.
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be everybody. It has to just be a true intention on our part.
Yes. George.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, but I'm not sorry. Pardon me for a
No,
second.
I was just saying, okay, that's how I understand it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And also, those are the three virtues of our Kush and Kemetic teachings when we talk about our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And so is what has been said already. But Pastor, you mentioned what Luke, the second chapter, verse 23.
Yes.
Okay, I'm basically reading from the King James Version. I'm on my phone,
Read.
but it says, "As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to the Lord."
Okay. Listen at this. This is representative. This is indicative of the mindset of Europeans. And the European mindset having infected and festered in the minds of men in particular who look like us results in the mistreatment and abuse of femininity. And that's what moves them to be like 21% voting for Trump. That's what moves them to speak disparagingly about femininity. Why? That scripture says that all males who are born are holy. Now think about that. This male cannot exist without the female. This male has been fed, nurtured, protected for 9 months. And yet, this male is deemed to be holy simply because it was born. So, how is it that an unholy body can house a holy male? That is not improbable. That's impossible. Yet, there are those who hold so tight to Christianity until they're breaking their joints in the fingers. And Christianity has done everything to dismiss the female as being not worthy of being acknowledged for anything other than sex. That's the mindset.
Can George read that again? And then I got a question.
Read it, George, if you don't mind.
Okay, again, it's Luke chapter 2, verse 23. It says, "As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to the Lord."
Done?
Okay, now my question. Because I think me and you have talked about this before, Pastor. From what we've learned, knowing what the womb is, knowing that the womb is beginning, the womb is the holy of holies, and so for if the masculine can ever even if the masculine can even and the, how we talked about the hymen being the veil. So if the masculine can't even make it in there, like I think that they have taken it literally, but I feel like it's something deeper to that. from what we've learned about what the feminine is, from what we learned about what the feminine is, and for the masculine to even make it behind the veil, wouldn't he be made holy by connecting with the feminine?
Well, that's that. Of course he would, but he would not. But it doesn't say that. Let's read what it says. This is a dismissal of females. Period. This is one of the reasons that females are not counted as being capable of having authority in the church.
I have a question, Pastor.
1 second. What is the law of the Lord that deemed this to be right? There is none. Myra?
In regards to what Don has said, as well as Mr. George, do you think they meant to put females there and they just took it out?
No, I don't think it meant to be there at all.
Okay.
Because everyone who is born from the womb has the opportunity to be holy. What does holy mean? To be set aside for a purpose. Everyone in this earth has a purpose. The divine one's purpose is to redeem what we have brought into existence. And we are closer to embodying that purpose than any time in history. Why did I want you to read that scripture? Because that scripture is the one that's used to keep men in authority in churches, in mosques, in synagogues. Are you with me, Myra? Don?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. So, as long as we made a confession that all scripture is divine, or all scripture comes from God, all scripture is right and righteous. When that declaration is made, when you embrace that, whether you are embracing it from the Quran or you embracing it from the Bible, it doesn't matter. When you embrace it and believe that all scripture is holy, you are agreeing with this as well. Can you see that? I'll tell you something else. George, would you read Romans 2, I think 2 and just read Romans 2 and I think 16. Romans 2 and 16. Romans. George, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You say Romans, the second chapter, what verse?
16.
16, you said? I'm sorry, Pastor. Romans 2:16?
Yes.
Okay, it says, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel.
Stop right there. Did you hear that? Paul did not say according to the gospel of Jesus Christ. He said according to whose gospel?
My gospel.
And he repeats that throughout the writings of his letters. So if it's his, then why is it that we believe that he's serious about what he's doing, or that he is writing the truth of that we have embraced it to be in the scriptures? These are things I've looked at, and I made notes of the scriptures. Yes. 2 Corinthians, George.
What chapter, Pastor?
12.
2 Corinthians chapter 12.
Yes.
Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 1.
16. 16.
16. I'm sorry. Okay, 16.
Oh, you're not sorry.
My
Yeah.
you're right. Okay, it says, but be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile.
Paul said, I'm being slick. And I caught you, meaning that I taught you stuff that was not true. And you bought it. Read it. These are the things that I want to point out. Why? Because we have only taught and preached what we were told to preach when we were enslaved. We have not searched the scriptures in order to see what they are saying. And when you read things like this, it should cause you to reevaluate what the truth is. Are you with me? George, you're muted.
Yes, and I have a comment, regarding this. Pastor, as we continue to appreciate the linguistics and the language of Scripture, I do believe that we still need to go back to the primary source in terms of the Babylonian writings, the hieroglyphics, the meta with regards to the truth. If we, looked at the 42 affirmations in terms of Maya, it talks about, I will not turn away from truth. And I believe that as we read the scriptures now, as we hear the scriptures now, to be able to have that understanding linguistically what it truly means. And I believe that our ancestors provided us, with their thoughts, their words, and their actions. And I believe that now we're discerning what we're reading in that way that we can truly understand truth.
Yes,
To share those thoughts. I'm done.
thank you. Because Paul introduced some truth in his writings. Yet these are the things he talk about. My gospel. I caught you off guard, and I was crafty enough to teach you to receive what I taught. That's all he's saying. There is not a lot of legitimacy to the writings of Paul. We've talked about this before, but we have not pointed out instances of that speaks to the illegitimacy of his writing. How is it that you can say my gospel? How is it that you can talk about Jesus having been risen from the dead, Jesus Christ being raised from the dead? And how is it that you can talk about it and nobody taught you? How is it that you can talk about it and you weren't even there? What did Peter say? Peter and had a argument with Paul. Did the disciples not? Because he was lying. So what that story telling us? It is saying to us, be cautious about who you believe and what you believe. Be cautious. Why? Because there are crafty men out there who will make you more gullible to what they are saying than and is not the truth. And your gullibility is simply because you believe everything in the Bible opens you up to be manipulated, opens you up to follow a gospel that had nothing to do with what even the church says the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Even the church said. Paul he doesn't say that. He says his gospel. And in those four, even if you look at it through Christianity, you will see that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are writing about what Jesus said. Are they not? Paul is speculating and making it up as he goes. So why do I bring you all of that? Because we are being led by the same mentality that Paul expressed. Because right now, if you be true to yourself, you know that the majority of the sermons that you hear preached, the majority of the teaching, comes from the letters of Paul. He is legitimized by the church and Catholicism than anyone else. Now, of course, I have my questions about it. Of course, we have questions. Of course, we know that the whole thing has been manipulated. But this is, to me, it's a justification for what we have said in the past about Paul and how illegitimate he is. I'm done with that portion anyway, unless there are questions. Thank you, George.
Pastor, I have one question. So, is the spiritual war against the feminine energy?
Yes.
Because it's a fight. Because we've been suppressed. The feminine energy has been suppressed for so long. I mean,
but that
was my question.
Let me define our fight. Our fight is not a struggle. Our fight is not a warfare that the earth is familiar with. Our fight is to sustain the essence of the divinity of femininity, the divine goddess, the cosmic mother. Where does that fight take place? Any one of you, where do you think that fight takes place?
In the mind, the mindset.
Okay, hold on to that. Anyone else?
In the womb?
Anyone? Yeah, hold on to that. Anyone else?
When you start believing the truth.
Hold on to that, Charles. Anyone else?
The fight is within.
That's it.
What did he say?
The fight is within. The battle is with us, embracing, hold on to, and believing the truth about the cosmic mother. Questions?
I got a comment.
Okay.
Everything we see, as far as in the physical realm and experience, is a manifestation of the wars that are taking place inside everybody else. The people in power, the people in control, the wars you see within your own life is a manifestation of what's taking place inside of you.
Yes.
And because it's a co-creation, that's why it's what we see, what we are experiencing.
Yes. Look at what has been shown to us. Look at what's being manifested to us simply because we chose to understand the nature of the battle and where the battle begins. And when we deal with this battle within, that is when things around us begin to change. Got it?
Yes, it resonates.
Thank you. Okay.
Paige, would you mind saying that just one more time so it sticks with me?
The battle that's within. Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Yes.
When we engage in warfare within ourselves to purge ourselves of those things that have kept us in bondage, when we begin to embrace the spiritual essence of who we are, look at how things begun to change. You know what the biggest change that took place for us to embrace? The election of Donald Trump.
That was tough.
That says it all. That says it all. The only way that he could be elected is for all of the evilness that this country has perpetuated and maintained in the lives of people of Babylonian descent. This had to be him. Do you think for a moment that Donald Trump could have been elected if he were running against George Bush back then? No. No. He beat Hillary because the Creator intended for this to be what it is. Biden beat him so we could see that Biden ain't no different than he is. And because of the warfare internal, we saw manifested something that has never been seen before on a large scale, a group of people who stood against Israel, with a large portion of them being Jewish. We also saw a large portion of people who voted for Biden began to walk away from him, not because of his mind, but because of what he did. When he decided that he was not going to push for that John Lewis bill to be passed, that spoke volumes to those who are following closely what that meant. And once that was shown, it was time for Trump to come back. And based upon his health, there is no way that he should be able to survive all the stuff that he's dealing with health-wise and the pressures of the office itself. That's the battle within that brought all of this to fruition. We have to know who we are. As George always said, know thyself. I'm done. Vermeil, does it help?
Greatly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Pastor, I have a question. I've been had one, but I never could get the. But my question goes back to when you said the antidote mindset. That's the plague, and that's the plague has been pushed out, and some of us people caught the plague, and it's not no physical fight of that plague, because you can't. It ain't a fight that you got to see physical. This is a fight that's spiritual, because that's the only thing that's going to change the antidote mindset.
Of course.
And I'm glad you brought it out that way, because when you said it like that, it hit like a brick.
Well, thank you, Charles, because that's the cure. That's the cure. So for this evening, I did not get to what I read on Sunday. However, we'll look at it on Saturday, unless we are guided into a different direction. So I'm very grateful for your presence, and I'm very grateful for your questions. So I wish you well for the rest of this week and for the rest of your life. And with that, I bid you a good evening.
Same unto you and
Thank you,
everyone.
pastors and teachers. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.